So therefore, there is no reason in the world not to take the precautionary principle. I think that's what I have to say. Thank you.
I think the one issue we did not address, and I thought that's very interesting, was that in 1997, the New England Journal of Medicine had a peer-reviewed publication confirming that there's a 4-fold increased risk of traffic crashes while on a cell phone. That was published in 1997. Now we know that government decided, even though the National Transportation Safety Research Board wanted to issue a warning and wanted to monitor the data on traffic crashes and cell phone use, they were actually prevented from doing that, according to stories that have appeared in our local Bible, Microwave News, as well as in the New York Times. Now, I want to ask that Niels Kuster, who is here from Zurich, Switzerland, to comment just briefly on some of the issues that he sees in his own country. And again, I want to thank him for a very effective presentation, but we want to hear about the sort of the political and regulatory world of Switzerland very briefly. Thank you, Niels.
You heard I'm from Switzerland, and I think Switzerland was the first country who introduced the precautionary principle. That was relatively straightforward in Switzerland because we have the environmental law which demands that emissions are reduced to levels which are affordable, economically and feasible. So they reduced the incident field from base station, from fixed station, by a factor of 100, in field strength a factor of 10. Now this law only applies to fixed stations, so mobile phones were falling under the free treaty of the EU with respect to goods and could not be regulated. But the Health Agency of Switzerland issued very early in the late 90s recommendation that people should use cables to communicate with the phone and to keep the phone in larger distance. Something I also want to promote is that Switzerland is a very small research program, and
biggest in the world, however.
And in contrast to others, they made an emphasis on mechanism, went apart from just throwing mobile phone radiation on biological system. So they made the attempt to try to track down mechanism, and I think that's unique, and I think that's also, if money becomes available here, some important portion of that money should be used in a similar way.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very important reminder. Now, we also have, I want to give the last word to Darius because he has some very interesting story to tell you, but now I'm going to ask our delegation from Sweden, the distinguished team of NITB and Salford, if one of them will please come up and tell us a little bit about what the Swedish experience has been in terms of both science and regulation. You can do it together because, again, I think that it's wonderful that you can be here and you're a student who is now, in fact, a doctor herself and getting her medical degree can also just add as to what we can learn here about the process that Sweden has undergone and what has been done by law and what is pending.
That was a very demanding task, but still. Yes, we are a team. We are a team. I'm very happy because, as you saw earlier today, that the guys who started this research in Sweden in the 80s is an aging team. So 4 of us are retired professors, and another 2 are still active professors, and we have 1 very young person who has joined us. That's Henrietta. And it came out so that she came as a very young student, having studied technology. It was technical physics, which is a really complicated matter, during the years that she was applying for medical studies. In Sweden, it's a lottery among the very smartest guys in Sweden, and girls, of course, guys and girls, girls and guys. And among them, there is a lottery who will join medicine, of those who want to join medicine. So Henrietta managed to study theoretical physics for 3 semesters before she joined medicine, after having been on the lottery, not winning for 3 times. And then we have some sort of a national competition where those who know best about mathematics and languages and everything have a special test, and she won that test in Sweden. So
right.
Henrietta is one of the brightest girls we have. She was to start medicine, and she was very clever to come over to me. Only after half a year of studies, coming over to me and saying, couldn't I make a difference to the world of yours? And I think that we needed some difference, because it's a very tough field to be a researcher in the electromagnetic field. And we had done so since, at that time, 17 years. And then this young lady came over, and with all her fascinating vigor and intelligence, I and those other guys, a little bit older guys on the gang, the professor of radiophysics, Bertil Persson, who many of you might know, the somewhat older professor of neuropathology, Arne Brown. Arne Brun is his name in Swedish. He has been around for 50 years in neurosciences, and he is the father of the frontal lobe Alzheimer type of disease. So it's a nice gang of people who then was so much juniorified, if that word exists in English, by Henrietta's coming to us. And only half a year ago, Henrietta defended her thesis, which I had the pleasure to partly tell you about earlier today, where we could tell that the cognitive functions in rats that have been exerted for 55 weeks of exposure to electromagnetic fields have a less good memory function than those that were not. And also that the genetics, that so many of the genes in the gene ontology basis are influenced upon. 4,000 of the 29,801 genes in the rat genome are either higher or lower in their expression. So this is what Henrietta's, and she will tell more about that in a little while. And since now, how much is it? Yes, 21 years, I have been in the field of trying to find out what happens to the blood-brain barrier. And that I told you earlier today, so that would be too much to get back to that again. But this is a fight. You have really to fight for what you see, because there are so many people who don't want to get the findings that you get. And we had a little bit of talking about that earlier today. And as I said earlier today, we have to stand up for the findings that we make as good scientists. And that's the only way how it can work. We seek for the truth.
Let me ask you, though, to
Go
talk
ahead.
about the Swedish government and what
Oh,
is
the
being
Swedish
done
government,
on
yes.
the local level. I know that
Yes.
some municipalities.
Yes, sure. Well, so the Swedish government. Basically, I do appreciate the Swedish government. It's a conservative type of government. It's more like the Democrats in America, because we have no Republicans, basically, in the Swedish political map. So therefore, we have a very democratic sort of setting back in Sweden. There is a will to try to support some of the research. But I must say that the Swedish authority, it's called SSI, it's now turned into SSM, I think. SSM, right. And they are not so happy always when positive, so-called positive findings are coming up. Right. And this is the shtuck of Sweden. And we have had some very good talks with them. So some years ago I was asked to go to the shtuck of Sweden. That means the authorities for the irradiation of both the ionizing and the non-ionizing sources. And I told the Director General about the research in Lund. And the next day he was on TV telling, might be you should have a hamstring. Might be you should not give this to your grandchildren. That was nice. But the next day, the minister in the field was on the radio saying, well, that man who is in this Director General of this SSI he shouldn't talk rubbish. The Swedish government wasn't very positive towards the information that came out.